Now, sometimes it seems like there's a new play in online music and video every 10 minutes, and we're in the Bay Area, so we care about tech. Here to help us sort out some of the players in the online media space has been Bajarin, analyst and strategist with Creative Strategies. Ben, thanks for being here. Now, we've been hearing for years that TV was going to go online, but that really started to happen in a big way in the last 12 months. What are your thoughts on streaming versus downloadable video? Where are we at? Give us a State of the Union.
I really don't think it's an either or. I think both present compelling experiences for the consumers. I think in the download model, there's a certain experience that you'll want to do if you download a piece of content, like move it to a portable device or maybe a screen in the car, move it to the television, etc. Whereas the streaming really provides a instant gratification of something that you want to watch. And so it's a very different experience, but it's one that I think accentuates and will bring about a I want to watch this right now experience, as opposed to maybe I want to download it, watch it later, or send it to a friend, etc.
If we were in a foot race right now, it would look like Apple's iTunes seems to be the easy winner in the video space. But online video is really still very much so in its infancy, many miles to go. What's going to be the one thing that makes one win over the other?
Well, I think it'll be the experience, the simplicity of finding and accessing content, large lists of catalogs. I think iTunes really has, with the movie store currently and the television store, a great catalog. And I think as other services add to that catalog, that will be things that differentiate. And so the simplicity is going to be a key part for that moving forward.
I think it was NBC and Fox recently released a media product kind of saying we don't like the Apple product or the pricing of their product, and they're going after advertising versus $2 for a video. Do you have any thoughts on advertising versus charging for downloads?
Well, I think, again, it comes back to the user experience. I mean, clearly, the studios and the networks weren't happy with the financing model. They wanted to control their pricing and control facets of the distribution. But this is one of those things where I think just sheer having access to the content is great for consumers. And I think that if the networks want to bring that in a free model, that's great for consumers because they can just sit through some ads and now watch this. I think that's good for advertisers to get their ads in more places and get more eyeballs behind that content. So I think it really just comes down to a differentiated experience, and there's going to be people that desire both.
Watching online is home run for advertisers because they're paying for broadband, or they have broadband access, which means they have a job. Now let's shift to the world of music. While iTunes looks like the standard for digital video, that's nothing compared to their position in music. They're dominant. They're a gorilla. It wasn't the first company there, but the iPod seemed to make them the winner. What's your thoughts on Apple's positioning right now?
Well, I think they're in a real strong position. Obviously, iTunes is still the dominant music management software, and the iPod is still the highest-selling MP3 player out there, and with the iPhone now also a phone as well. And I think that it was really the ease of use, the simplicity of connecting your iPod to a store or to a piece of software that you're using to now manage your music was the ease of use that they brought in that consumers found attractive. And so I think that as they continue to innovate on that experience, innovate with devices, with the content that they continue to have, the consumers will still feel that they're a strong player in that market.
Let's talk about Apple's biggest competitor right now. By many accounts, it's probably Amazon. It's mp3.com store. From the label's point of view, is Amazon's MP3, is that really about beating iTunes? Is it giving them some wiggle room with iTunes? And is Amazon a serious competitor to Apple?
I think this really comes back to consumer choice. I think anytime you have consumer choice, it's a good thing for the market and for consumers. And this is just a good example of the labels now starting to explore other methods of distribution, of ways that consumers can find and access that content. And I think that's a good thing for consumers. It keeps Amazon, it'll keep iTunes, and it'll keep anyone else that enters that market on their toes, force them to innovate, force them to create better user experiences that the consumers will benefit from.
Now, from time to time, we also hear about some online websites that do ad-supported music. So the ad-supported angle is just not in video with what NBC is trying to do, but it's also trying to get in the music model. Realistic or not? None whatsoever?
Well, I think that's a very interesting model, particularly as it pertains to the discovery of music. If you want to discover new music, how do you do that without buying it? Is there good ways to listen to full songs, not just a 30-second snippet of that song? And I think an advertising model, whether it's playlists, whether it's full albums, a very interesting way for you to discover and then maybe lead to a purchase of that music as well.
Sounds good. We're going to keep you around. We're going to talk more online media, social networking with you when we come back. First, we're going to have Heather with headlines. Michael Kelton's going to follow with a forecast. Third up, Elaine McKay is going to talk traffic. Then me and Tim make you some good deal of money. We're talking with Creative Strategies bin Bajarin. Now, let's talk about social network sites, things like Friendster and MySpace, Facebook. They're winning the social network space right now. And honestly, I didn't get MySpace until I figured out you can add advertising into it. Tell us a little bit about some of these current crop of players, so to speak.
Well, there's definitely a lot of interest in the social networking space currently, and I think we're watching all of them very closely. We're asking questions about what users do, trying to find out what the compelling experiences are that will bring them back and keep them on those sites. I think right now there's some very interesting business model questions about how those sites really make money, capitalize on the eyeballs that are showing up at those sites in record volumes. And I think that when we start to really experiment with different business models and see what doesn't hinder the experience but actually makes these sites money but still keeps consumers engaged, keeps people on the site and doesn't take away from the experience with the advertising, then we'll really learn a lot about where these networks go.
Now, talk to me about the difference between personal networking sites like MySpace and professional sites like LinkedIn. And by the way, I saw the CEO of LinkedIn today say it would cost a whole lot of money for someone to buy us.
Definitely different interests, why people go to these different sites. I think that if you look at a typical MySpace or a Facebook customer, that they're there to just network with friends, use it as a form of self-expression, whereas in the LinkedIn model, you're going there with a business purpose or a networking purpose to find business or contacts. And so it really just comes with a different perspective and set of expectations as you go to one of those sites.
Now, since I don't really have friends, I don't have a need for a MySpace or a Facebook, but I do have business associates, so LinkedIn seems to be a little bit more focused towards me. What are we going to go for in the future? Is it going to be the bullet shot focus, or is it going to be the more open Facebook and MySpace type of relationships?
Well, I definitely think that there's a good argument for both. I personally think that there's a lot of value around social networks when you're in with like-minded people, with people who share the same interests and passions of you. You could imagine that a group like an affinity group, a Harley club, or a sports fan group, things like that could be very interesting. I think, you know, to some degree there's an interesting model with fantasy sports. Is that a social network? Is that something that's a good example to leverage? I think you can look at many of those examples and see how when people are grouped with like-minded people with passions and interests, that there's a lot of value, and that's really where a social network now becomes valuable and comes alive.
Now, one of the things that I saw not too long ago was World of Warcraft. There's a business model inside the game. It's a huge social environment. Second Life, there's a business model inside the game. Are these serious business models, or are they just ultimately games in the end?
Well, I definitely think that when a technology like World of Warcraft and Second Life start proving and actually making money like they are currently, where transactions take place, we have to pay attention to it. I think that there is a future. There's a social network that, by all definitions, is a social network that doesn't get much play, which is Xbox Live. And I'm very interested in the way that Xbox Live evolves as a network. It started just as people wanting to game together, but now has gone much greater depths beyond that, where I can access movies, I can buy movies, I can buy TV shows, I can do all sorts of micro-commerce. And I think that's a very interesting one to take place as we see how people now start spending money virtually and why they go online to do the things that they do. I think World of Warcraft, Second Life, Xbox Live, and more are great examples that need to be fleshed out and developed, but have a lot of life in the future.
And I'll give you an example on Half-Life 2. There's a woman who now sells skins for people's avatars. She's making 6 figures designing clothes for an online community. Crazy how real this world of commerce truly is. Let's pull up the contact information for our guest. He's fantastic. Good insights, bin Bajarin, analyst and strategist, Creative Strategies. Good background stuff, especially if you're a tech investor, to learn things that Creative Strategies has to offer, and that's creativestrategies.com. Now, when we come back, green investments get more green. Oil prices take a dip. Kind of a nice tie together there. We'll hit that and more in today's financial headlines. Stay with us.